Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. So, from Charlotte to Cincinnati, LaGuardia and O'Hare, Reagan and Bush, even Anchorage, Alaska. Now we know where the FAA says you can expect flight reductions as the government shutdown continues on. In moments, the former head of the FAA tells us what you should expect. Also tonight, a new deal with the drug makers, this time around weight loss.
Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk have agreed to offer their most popular GLP-1 weight loss drug. I go with the fat drug, remember?
When the White House says the steep discount will soon hit. Plus, mixed messaging. Republicans are saying Tuesday night's lesson is they need to focus on affordability. So why is Trump describing that as a lie? And the vote on Venezuela. The Senate just moments ago, quite literally about a minute ago, shooting down a war powers resolution as the commander-in-chief deliberates potential land strikes with more forces closing in on the Caribbean. We'll tell you what that means going forward. But first tonight, want to get away? Well, now you might be thinking twice. The FAA revealing tonight that first list of airports that will see reduced travel beginning first thing in the morning. From Boston and New York, Chicago, to Los Angeles. These are the airports here. Look all the way at the top left. They're not even spared in Anchorage, Alaska. The Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, saying air traffic will be cut by 10% at 40 airports in total starting tomorrow. Day 38 of the country's longest ever federal government shutdown. That's tomorrow, tonight 37, but this is all the fallout. Transportation employees, simply put, like air traffic controllers, are overworked and fed up as their missed paychecks start to add up. It's already led to thousands of delays, cancellations, long security lines, and tomorrow comes the next phase. Kelly Meyer with what the White House is saying in anticipation of all this tonight. The former head of the FAA, Randy Babbitt, on what you can expect. Congressman Sam Graves is the head of the Transportation Committee on when Congress might act. We'll get to all of them in a second, but first, to our Jessica Cartalia on what she is seeing this evening there at Newark. Jessica?
Yeah, it is not good, Blake. You said want to get away. Well, if you do, you're going to have to wait several hours, at least 2.5 right now if you're here at Newark. Take a look at this board. All you see is that bright orange, delayed, delayed, delayed. Across the board. It is unbelievable. Initially, we thought that it would just be cargo planes that were affected, as well as, very small flights here, and international flights would not be impacted. That, unfortunately, is not the case here in Newark. Every flight is impacted in some way. There have been more than 560 delays and counting. At other parts of the country, ground delays at Washington, D.C. and Boston. A 10% reduction in flights at those 40 busiest airports that you showed at the top of the show. Looks like about 1,800 flights. That's per day. Airlines are already canceling flights for tomorrow. At last check, there were 500 that had already been canceled, and that is before this initial 10%. They're going to kind of roll into it with just 4% tomorrow. Of course, this is all because of staffing problems. We've heard that air traffic controllers have had to get second jobs just to try and make ends meet. So now Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy says, well, it makes sense that they're calling out sick here because they need to get to their other jobs where they're going to make some extra cash. Here's what travelers told us today.
I'm a little concerned, but I'm trying not to think about it. I'm only thinking positive thoughts.
Okay.
So I'm just pretending like everything is normal.
I'm very happy that we're flying out today because I heard that things will continuously get worse over the weekend, but hopefully we won't have any issues. So hoping for the best.
Now, of course, the big issue now is consumer confidence. And Blake, we're getting closer and closer to the holidays, and we've spoken with people. They don't want to be stuck at the airport. So many airlines are already letting people cancel for free, no charge, just to avoid situations like this one.
Jessica Cartalia live tonight in Newark. Jessica, thank you. Over now to the White House. Our Kelly Meyer there, where the president was asked about the grounding of those flights. Kelly?
Yeah, Blake, this was the first time the president commented on the airline cuts at some of our nation's busiest airports. The president saying he believes it isn't safe to fly, and that's why they're cutting back. Listen to this.
Are you at all concerned that it might not be safe to fly right now? And what do you tell people who are gearing up for
that's why
Thanksgiving?
they're cutting. Yeah, it's a fair question. As Sean Duffy announced, they're cutting in certain areas 10%, and they want to make sure it's 100% safe. That's why they're doing it.
The president again today putting pressure on Senate Republicans to get rid of the filibuster and reopen the government now. Blake.
Our Kelly Meyer live tonight over at the White House. Kelly, thank you. Joining us now, Randy Babbitt served as the head of the FAA during the Obama administration, also was in charge of the pilots union with us tonight. Randy, it is so nice to see you, as this is what so many folks all across the country are talking about this evening. Is this necessary, given all the call-outs and given the need for safety, obviously, or is what we're watching an open negotiation right now trying to end this government shutdown?
Well, the reduction is clearly designed to keep the system safe. Folks that have been watching it have known full well as the overtime increases and the fact that people aren't getting paid, they're working 12, 14-hour shifts, eventually they're going to take off. And the staffing is just going down. And the only way to handle it is reduced to the level that you can operate the system safely at. And so it is unfortunate that, the air traffic control, we find ways to pay a lot of other people. God bless them. They played the military, hundreds of thousands of them, but we can't find a way to pay 14,000 air traffic controllers. And we do have the money. We're still paying taxes. They have the money. They've just chosen not to pay it. So that makes the system even, in my mind, quite silly.
Right. There's a lot of folks out there who are going to fly in the upcoming days. They got to go somewhere, whether it be for personal reasons, for business, other reasons, whatever. And then I'm guessing there's a lot of folks out there tonight who are thinking about maybe a trip this weekend or the upcoming days, don't necessarily need to go or worried about what happens if they get stuck and they can't make it back. What would you tell folks who are flying in the upcoming days?
Well, it's going to be difficult. When you say you're going to reduce the traffic 10%, that's not just, they're just going to take 10% of all the flights. The carriers are going to take a close look if they've got a choice to operate, one airplane that has 250 people in it and another airplane has 50 people in it. They're going to operate the one with all the people. The airplanes take up the same space on radar, on the runway, right. No matter how big or small the airplane is, it takes up the same space. So you're going to see, some issues coming in there. The second component that multiplies when airplane A, was going to go from airport A to airport B, and they cancel it. Well, then it's not going to fly from B to C either. So it's really hard to predict, what flights will be directly affected. They'll try to do it the best they can, but the carriers are being handed a big problem. So
it's November the 6th. Obviously, we got Turkey Day later this month. But at what point, Randy, obviously, that's a long way. That's 2.5 weeks. But at what point, if this continues to go on and on and on, sort of what's the date that it will impact Thanksgiving travel no matter what?
Oh, I would imagine if they didn't have it fixed the weekend before Thanksgiving, it's going to be lingering. You've got people, they're going to have to get back in. In some cases, I don't know, by the way, controllers are not interchangeable. You can't, somebody who's working the approach control facilities at the New York traffic area is not interchangeable with someone who's an en route controller. Those are different jobs. And so they're going to have to get everybody spun back up, get people back to work. And I think it's going to take several days. And then the carriers are going to have to restore, their scheduling of aircraft, their crews. They have, crews have legality problems too. If you have to hold 2 hours on a flight that was supposed to be, an hour and a half flight, and you wind up at 3.5, that's cutting into the limits that the pilots can fly. Right. So you're going to run into compounding problems if this continues.
Randy Babbitt, former head of the FAA, with us tonight. And I leave Randy with this note. When you look at the chart of air traffic controllers, Randy, you know this, but it went down basically for 10 straight years. It's leveled out, if we can show that real quick. It's leveled out in the last few years. But that is part of the problem that we are dealing with tonight. Randy Babbitt, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Joining us now, he is the congressman from the state of Missouri, Republican, chairman as well of the House Transportation Committee, Sam Graves, back with us once again. Congressman, thanks for being here. I'll start with you on the same question that I started there with Randy. Is this purely safety? Like, obviously, safety is first and foremost and paramount, or is there a component here as well of we're watching sort of an open negotiation to try to end this shutdown?
Well, we're not going to sacrifice safety. You know, that's the bottom line. But there are going to be delays. And you put up the graphic just a little bit ago about air traffic controllers, the number of air traffic controllers going down. That is a big part of the problem as well. We are very short on the number of air traffic controllers. Now, the good news is, for the first time in a very long time, because Secretary Duffy got so engaged, they filled every one of the seats in Oklahoma City at the Academy of Air Traffic Controllers. That's 2,000 new controllers that are going to be coming online. So that's good news, but we got to get them through the pipeline, through the system. We can't sacrifice.
That takes time, right?
Right.
How long?
It can take, so you go through the academy, and then you have to, it's kind of like an apprenticeship. Then you serve beside somebody that makes sure you're going to be doing the right thing. It takes a long time. It takes years.
So are we witnessing right now, Chairman, how resilient the system is on day 37 of the shutdown, or how fragile it is?
Well, that's a good question. You know, and there's a simple answer to this, too. If we just pass the clean CR, then we can go back to negotiating the budget bills, and we can get the government back up and running. That's the simple answer. Pass the CR, and let's get back to work.
So what happens if they come to you and they say, okay, there's some sort of a deal that's generally speaking like this? We're going to open up the government for a few months, get through January, and Democrats get the vote that they want on subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. Is you yes on that?
I'd have to look at it. It sounds plausible. It sounds doable. But the fact of the matter is, we can negotiate all of those things, all of them, after we get the government open. And there's no reason to hold, people hostage and air traffic controllers hostage, military hostage, to open the government, particularly when we have done it. Senator Schumer's voted for this dozens of times under President Biden, a clean CR.
Would you get on a plane right now? Can you even get back to Washington? How long would it take you?
I would get back to Washington. Wouldn't have a problem getting on a flight. I don't know about the delays. That's obviously a consideration, but the skies are safe, and our air traffic controllers are doing a good job too. They are still showing up, even though they're not paid, but they are under a tremendous amount of stress. You've got the stress of the job, and then you've got the stress of not being able to make your bill payments at the end of the month. So that's adding to it.
Sam Graves is the chairman of the committee that oversees all this with us tonight. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. It is obviously a big story in the upcoming days and hours. We'll continue to follow it. But first, on the other side, the president doubling down, saying Republicans are winning on affordability. But some Republicans say this week's election tells a different story. So who is really paying the price? Plus, speaking of costs, lose weight at a lower price? The White House strikes a deal on weight loss drugs. What the president is saying and how much you could save. And at this hour, the Senate makes an attempt to rein in President Trump's campaign to potentially strike on land in Venezuela. The vote just happened. The razor-thin margin later in the hour. I thank you for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. Mick Mulvaney, Chris Cillizza, other side of the break.
What the Democrats do is they lie. We are the ones that have done great on affordability. They've done horribly on affordability. The only thing is they go out and they take commercials how under the Democrats you have affordability. It's just the opposite. We have much lower prices than they do.
President Trump hitting back today at claims from Democrats that high prices handed Republicans a loss in this week's elections. But it's not just Democrats who are saying that. It's become a mainstream lesson for Republicans after Tuesday night's election. For example, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene giving this diagnosis here on the show last night.
I believe the election yesterday was a referendum on not delivering what November 2024 was about. It was about America first. It was about MAHA, and it was about cost of living and putting Americans' issues above everything else.
Democratic candidates across the country made affordability a central issue in their campaigns, from Zohran Mamdani in New York to Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, all winners. And then how about this? You probably didn't hear about this race. I'm going to tell you about it. Georgia. Democrats there flipped 2 seats on the Public Service Commission. Why am I talking about the Public Service Commission in Georgia? It's because those are the ones who are responsible in that state for determining the cost of electricity bills. And the voters there said, get out. We want new folks in. News Nation political contributor, former Trump White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney joins me live. So too does News Nation contributor Chris Cillizza. Chris, hello.
Hello.
Mick, hello. Mick, I'm going to start with you first. You know, Joe Biden in 2024 said, don't believe your lying eyes, I'm healthy. Don't believe your lying eyes, your credit card bill isn't going up. And now Trump's kind of saying, don't believe your lying eyes, your credit card bill's going up, right?
Yeah, you know, Blake, I was thinking the exact same thing today when I saw some of the stuff the Republicans were putting out. They're saying, oh, what we need to do is just convince people that things are better, that we're not doing a good job of messaging. We're not, delivering. We're not telling people all the things we've accomplished on. That's a playbook right out of what Biden did a couple of years back. So look, they're in denial right now. That's fine. We got beat on the affordability issue. Trump is right. His policies are going to be better for affordability than the Democrats are. I think the proof will be in the pudding on that. But they won the argument on the election day, and that's what counts.
Chris, average U.S. electric prices per hour over the last 5 years, they are up 37%. It's up 5% in the last. If you look to the top right of the chart, you're like, oh, that's kind of flat. It's actually up in the past 5 years, year by 5%. But over the past 5 years, that's what America's dealt with. And now you got to wonder if Trump's sort of catching the blame here, what he will do with it, and how he's going to acknowledge it.
I think it's really hard. I thought it was so funny. Mick made me think of this. So Trump did an interview with Fox yesterday, and they asked him, well, what went wrong, in the election? And he's like, it's not our policies. We just didn't get, it's not our message. We just didn't get our message out to enough people, which is, and I know Mick knows this, literally what every losing party said. Our message is amazing. We just didn't tell enough people. So I think that's part of the problem is Trump is not good at, even privately, saying, okay, we need to reposition a little bit, right? Like what didn't work about the affordability message? How can we get that out? Because Mick's right, we can debate his policies, but a lot of times Donald Trump's on a 2028, 2029 timeline for his policies. If you're a Republican up in 2026, you don't have another 2 extra years. So I think they have to reposition. I have to think, why did they lose the messaging fight? What was it? And I just don't know if he is going to let that conversation happen.
Mick, if you were back as the chief of staff, put that hat on, and you heard what Trump said today after what Republicans have said. Let's actually, let me roll some of it. Element 2, soundbite 2, roll it real quick.
What I've heard from New Yorkers, that the thing that keeps them up at night is the cost of rent, of groceries, of childcare.
So as governor, I'm going to create real change so you can afford to stay here in this state.
We are going to cut red tape and build homes families can actually afford.
So that was Democrats, of course, Republicans on and on saying this was a major warning sign. If you were to look Trump eye to eye, what would you tell him?
Yeah, part of the job of the chief of staff is try to look down the chessboard 3 or 4 moves and see what's going to happen. My guess is, given the jobs numbers that we saw in the last 24 hours, the Fed is going to seriously consider another couple of cuts on interest rates. And my fear is that that's going to spike inflation. Inflation right now is running about 2.9, 3%. Doesn't sound like it's that much higher than 2%, which is the target. It's actually 50% higher. 3% is 50% higher than 2%. And Trump, if he gets those cuts that he's asked for so long and they trigger inflation, they're going to have an even bigger difficulty going into 2026. So they need to get ahead of this message right now. They need to push deregulation especially, and that foreign direct investment in the U.S. needs to come sooner, not later.
I think one of the problems that Trump has is it is the Biden all over. You can't seem like you are out of touch. You can't say inflation. He says it over and over again since the election. Inflation's great. Everything's going really, really well. I don't know that people feel it, right? It's like Joe Biden talking about how the GDP is good. Well, the average person doesn't care, doesn't even know what the GDP is. are the things that they want to buy, whether that's a small thing like groceries or a big thing like a house, are they cheaper? And I just worry, again, Donald Trump is looking at his legacy. If you are a House Republican in a swing seat, you have to be much more aware of the fact that in 362 days, I just counted, 362 days, I think, you are facing an electorate, and you can't wait until 2027 or 2028 for things to look better.
By the way, our News Nation poll, have you had to make financial sacrifices over the last year to make ends meet? 51% of Republicans say yes. Mick Mulvaney, Chris Cillizza, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, still much more ahead. Here on the Hill, one of the nation's top doctors saying America has nothing to gain and everything to lose.
Mr. President, our estimate, based on the company numbers as well, is Americans will lose 135 billion pounds by the midterms.
It's a good thing, right? How all those pounds lost will have real impacts on our health system. The big announcement out of the White House today on the drug that so many Americans are now turning to. Other side.
I am thrilled to announce that the two world's largest pharmaceutical manufacturers, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, have agreed to offer their most popular GLP-1 weight loss drug. I call it the fat drug, remember? At drastic discounts.
All right, so today we got the skinny on the president's plan to cut the cost of weight loss drugs for millions of Americans. The weight loss drug makers, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, agreeing to offer some of their obesity drugs to eligible patients for as little as $149 to come in the coming months on that TrumpRx website, the website that the administration is forming. Now, weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy, as you might know, they have spiked in popularity across the country. Just look at the last 5 years here, what's happened, basically 5x in 5 years. But they are pricey. 1 month can run north of $1,000 without insurance, and it comes as obesity rates are on the decline. How about that for some good news? 37%, though, of U.S. adults still considered obese, down from an all-time high of 40% just a few years ago. Now, obesity has long been an issue across the country, with the highest obesity rates in lower income areas. This is just a look of the United States, and you can see specifically how it's a problem in some of the states in the Southeast. Here now, Georgia Republican Congressman Rich McCormick. He is a Republican from the great state of, by the way, also an ER physician in a former life. With us tonight here on the Hill. Congressman, doctor, thank you, sir. Put on your doctor's hat for a second. I normally have you on here for the politics stuff, but put on the doctor's hat. What excites you about this? And also, conversely, are there any worries, anything that worries you on this?
I mean, it's good that America is paying attention to their health. Obesity is really endemic here in America. I mean, think about it, 40%. That's almost half of America is obese. That means we have a lot of problems in the way we eat and the way we exercise. And I'll tell you, as a guy who used to be a personal trainer, if you want to be fit, don't just rely on a shot or a pill. I mean, it's a bad habit. You're going to lose muscle mass. You're going to lose vascularity. You're going to lose the effects of cardiovascular health when you just rely on a shot or a drug of some sort. You got to get out there and do the work. You got to get out there and walk. You got to find something you can do every day for exercise. There's no replacement in a drug for that. So I hope people don't get too reliant on it, because it'll drive what you eat. When you actually are active, you'll have a different desire for different foods. That's just the way you're physiologically programmed. I'm glad we're bringing down the drug prices, but quite frankly, it's still more expensive than it is overseas. And we have a lot of other drugs that are unaffordable. And quite frankly, a lot of people can't even afford $150 per month for this drug.
Yep.
It is.
And then there's a question, Congressman, about if the argument is if you use this, you are healthier, and if you are healthier, then then the healthcare costs come down, whether or not Medicaid should be paying for this. And right now, there's a handful of states all across the country, more than that, close to 10, in which it's covered. And it is in red states politically, it's in blue states politically, it's in purple states politically. What about the concept, it's not there in Georgia, where you're sitting live tonight, what about the concept of maybe having Medicaid pick up the tab here?
This is what I love about Medicaid. Medicaid, you get to compare and contrast different states and see who does it better. That's why I don't think the federal government should be involved in Medicaid. It was never meant to be. This way you get to see which states are doing it right, who's doing the most effective health care, the way they're delivering it, the way it's accessible, how you deliver drugs, and you get to actually weigh and see who actually is saving money and getting healthier, and then you copy the best program. I don't think there should be a one-size-fits-all. I'm not a guy who believes that the federal government should be driving this. I think each state should be in charge of Medicaid, not only in the way they deliver it, but also in the way they pay for it. It's a bad habit to get the federal involvement going. Now we're paying about 80% on at least 5 states of the bill. We've gone from 1/3 of all federal of all spending of the government has been from the federal now to 2/3. We're on a spiral we're not going to be able to recover from.
On the health front, Congressman, we'll go from the doctor to the congressman front. Day 37 of the government shutdown. And one of the potential ways out of this is it seems, a longer-term, short-term spending deal, maybe say through the end of January, and then giving Democrats the vote that they want on the Affordable Care Act subsidies. If that's sort of the construct of how this could end this shutdown, would you be in favor of that?
Well, it's very funny. First of all, realize the Freedom Caucus is now asking for a year-long CR, and the Democrats are trying to shut down the government over CR on funding that they voted for in the first place. This is the weirdest year ever in politics. But quite frankly,
your words, not mine.
It's just crazy. But quite frankly, if you look, yeah, of course we need to open up the government. The fact of the matter is the Democrats shut down the government for a clean CR, which has never been done in the history of this great nation, for the longest period of time that's ever been done in this great nation.
I know, and that's what your side of the aisle has been saying, and I get it. But what about moving forward now? Like, is that the way out?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you're going to, I mean, this is all things healthcare, by the way. Pay attention to who's donating to who. And when the healthcare industry is making 230% more in profits than they did before the Affordable Care Act, is the subsidies really for the American people, or is it for the insurance companies? Because quite frankly, every year you get an increase in your premiums anyways, even when it was subsidized in COVID. Who's going to pay for this? It's not free. When you say government subsidies, when you talk about $1.5 trillion, who pays for that? People think it's just printed out of thin air. Your kids will pay for that. This is supposed to be state-run. This is supposed to be responsible. When insurance companies are making 230% more than they made before the Affordable Care Act, and you want to increase government spending, which is going to pad their pocketbooks, then they're going to give money to certain politicians who love to do that sort of thing and make more money. Pay attention, because there's 2 senators in Georgia who get some of the best money from the insurance lobbyists and the pharmaceutical companies in the whole nation, and they're voting against freeing up this government.
I'll end with this. If that's sort of the construct of the deal, would you vote for it?
I'm fine with that. We're going to have to come to the table and do it anyways. I don't even know why we're in a shutdown, because we're going to have to address health care. But the question we need to also talk about is, should we subsidize insurance companies? Because it's run through insurance companies, guys. Look at who the top 4 out of the 10 companies in the Fortune 500 are either insurance or pharmaceuticals. 7 of the top 20. Making record profits. Don't think this is just about the average citizen here in America. This is about big business.
Rich McCormick, Republican there in Georgia, doctor as well, as I mentioned, with us tonight. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.
You got it. Still to come. Other side of the break. Brand new news out of Washington tonight. In the Senate, they were voting on a war powers resolution that would allow the president to strike inside Venezuela. That went down. What it means going forward, plus this.
I thought she was an evil woman who did a poor job, who cost the country a lot in damages and in reputation.
President Trump not mincing words as the former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announces her retirement, but we'll show you the Republican who said good on her. The Senate, moments ago, just voting down a war powers resolution, the purpose of which doesn't allow President Trump, if he wants legal justification, for potential land strikes inside Venezuela. In the aftermath of at least 16 known strikes by the U.S. on alleged drug boats, Democratic senators leading the charge to make the administration have to answer to Congress before conducting strikes against that country. This is the USS Gerald Ford. The country's most powerful aircraft carrier is expected to reach the Caribbean in the coming days as the buildup there continues. Full panel here with me now. Bill McGinley, former cabinet secretary in the first Trump administration. Joné Wortel, a Democratic strategist. Aaron McGuire is a Republican strategist. And back again, Crystal is a News Nation contributor. Hello to you all.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. You were the cabinet secretary in the first Trump administration. You know how all these cabinet secretaries sort of come together and deliberate. What do you think's happening inside the White House right now as the Senate shoots down this possibility of a war powers resolution?
I think it's full steam ahead with respect to the Caribbean and Venezuela, but also taking on the cartels. I think it's been a priority of this president to stop the flow of fentanyl and illicit drugs that are killing over 80,000 Americans a year, which is more than all the deaths in Vietnam combined.
Like, is he likely meeting with Rubio, Hegseth daily right now?
I think they've been meeting nonstop. Just because the Senate was voting on the war powers resolution didn't pause any of those meetings whatsoever. I think it's full steam ahead. I think Hegseth, Rubio as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State, they are going to put an end to this.
You used to speak for Trump politically in a former life. Aaron, where do you think he goes from here?
I think the point's correct. I think he keeps going full steam ahead. I think that this is a president through both parts of his administration, the first and the second, has really focused on combating fentanyl in the United States, combating drug deaths and overdoses. There was large bipartisan legislation in the first administration to combat that. This is obviously a different, more aggressive posture on that, but it all remains the same. He wants to make sure that Americans at home are more safe. And having had a brother who died of a drug overdose and knowing exactly what this feels like, I am happy that any other family in this country, perhaps tomorrow, doesn't get the phone call my family got.
I think, and I have said this since 2001, the presidents, Republicans and Democrats now, just sort of do what they want militarily, candidly. I mean, Barack Obama did it too.
No one droned more all over the world than Barack Obama.
It is Congress, in theory, is supposed to approve authority of military force.
Right.
You know, I wish I feel like I'm 600 years old. I wish we could go back to the way things were.
Right.
But I do think at some point here, and this is not, I don't want people out there to hear this as an anti-Donald Trump one. It really isn't. I mean, he is in keeping with how Democratic and Republican presidents have approached this, which is basically like, well, I'll do it, and we'll worry about Congress later. Congress seems to be willing to kind of lay down in that regard, but they are a co-equal branch of government. I would say that about the budget and certainly about this.
This is about checks and balances. And so I think that the Senate is taking the right posture here to say, whoa, wait a minute. We know this is the president who's had a history of doing whatever he wants, but that doesn't negate the argument that Congress really should still be stepping in and still should be intervening, just like these senators are, and they're leading the charge to really take back the power of Congress.
You for a moment, the president nominated you, Bill, to be White House counsel, right? So you obviously have an insight into the legalities of all this. Do you think what he's doing is legal? How is it viewed inside the White House?
I do. I think what you're doing is you're seeing some muscle given to the Monroe Doctrine that we've had in the United States since the 19th century. Let's not forget, during the transition, there was a lot of discussion of the Panama Canal and the Chinese takeover of that and how that was a national security threat to the United States. I think what we're doing in Venezuela is in the same vein as that. I mean, what we're saying is the Western Hemisphere is the United States. Asia and Europe, you need to stay out. I also think part of this, and I think this is critically important, is that we are not going to allow, you remember when he came in, he imposed tariffs on Canada and Mexico. It wasn't for economic reasons. It was to stop human trafficking and fentanyl from crossing the border into the United States. Those countries have largely started to cooperate with the United States. Venezuela is the bad actor where you see the cigarette boats bringing the fentanyl up. He's putting an end to it. So he is protecting America.
All right, some big news as well here in this town today. The former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announcing her retirement from Congress. The 85-year-old had a career that spanned 4 decades. She became the first and only woman to be the Speaker of the House, a position she held twice. Pelosi will go down, no matter what you think of her, whether you like the policies, how she acted, whatever. She will go down as one of the most powerful lawmakers in modern history. Was even able to muster praise from the other side of the aisle today, while also catching a little more than heat from President Trump.
I will praise Nancy Pelosi. She had an incredible career for her party. I served under her speakership in my first term of Congress, and I'm very impressed at her ability to get things done. I wish we could get things done for our party like Nancy Pelosi was able to deliver for her party.
I think she was a tremendous liability for the country.
And on Dick Cheney?
I thought she was an evil woman who did a poor job, who cost the country a lot in damages and in reputation. I thought she was terrible.
Well, that's quite the contradiction.
Quite the contradiction.
from both there.
Right. I mean, Nancy Pelosi has been a long-time punching bag of President Trump, so it doesn't surprise me at all to see him saying the things he said. But you look at what Marjorie Taylor Greene had said, and you see what even the statements that Paul Ryan said, really praising her leadership. She has been a force in Congress. She's been a dynamic figure in the Democratic Party. What she was able to do with the ACA, well, those consequences will reverberate for generations. And so we see kind of folks who even maybe don't agree with her policy positions praising that she was a thoughtful and very dynamic leader during her tenure.
I think it's interesting that Mitch McConnell in the Senate is retiring in 2026 and Nancy Pelosi in the House is retiring in 2026. Yes, different parties, they probably agree on almost nothing. But I think that they are probably in the building in terms of their ability to get things done, to marshal support behind something. With McConnell, anti-campaign finance reform, justices with Pelosi pushing the ACA through. Look, I just think they're both titanic figures. And I know lots of people on the left and the right now hate Mitch McConnell. Right. And I know almost everybody on the right hates Nancy Pelosi. Right. But in terms of look at Pelosi gets elected, in the late 80s, McConnell 86. The breadth of what they did legislatively, what they shepherded through, I mean, they're gigantic.
And McConnell, too, I would say, with all the judges.
Mm-hmm. But gigantic figures with long legacies, whether or not you agree with what they did.
I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think this is a moment for Republicans to be a bit more statesmanlike in this. I don't agree with Nancy Pelosi on almost anything. And that's what everybody will say, and then they'll add the but. She should absolutely be acknowledged. She was the first female Speaker of the House of Representatives, twice. Do I agree with the policy positions she shepherded through? No. Was she incredibly successful in what she did in keeping that party together? Republicans always talk about how, I don't know what happens behind the scenes with Democrats, what kind of thumb screws they've got, but Nancy Pelosi keeps that team in line. She was known for that on the Hill. She was known for running a tight ship. She was known for keeping conference meetings quiet. You want to know what's going on in GOP politics in the House in real time? You can know it during a House meeting. They text reporters in real time. Love her or lump her, Nancy Pelosi has made an absolutely massive impact on the United States, and Republicans will feel they have to clean it up for decades.
Look, I think, in a way, I'm with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
I just think you have to acknowledge the discipline that she was able to impose on the House Democratic Caucus. She has a lot of different tribes and families like we have on the Republican side, but she was able to keep them together. I understand the president's ill feelings toward her, as we can say, but I think the one common thing that Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, who is retiring, Mitch McConnell has some of his own issues, both were willing to step in front and be the heat shield for their caucus. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is when they took some of those positions, it was so they took the flak so their vulnerable members would not. And for that, I think they showed a lot of leadership, and they're going to be remembered for that.
You want me to add the but?
Do you want me to add the but?
Now show the Nancy Pelosi stock tracker. Now that she's out of office.
She's wealthy.
That portfolio that she had to file,
I
of
hope
course,
we all
her
become
husband's in the
successful.
industry. One of the greatest of all time. And now that she's no longer going to be in Congress, the Nancy Pelosi stock tracker will no longer live.
Nobody does better.
You got any issue with me bringing that up?
I mean, listen, it's fair. It's fair.
Yeah.
She's just got a good knack for stocks, Blake.
She does better.
She's a smart woman. She's had 40 years of practice at
Well, 40 years of knowing what's going on in there before she sells the stock.
To be clear, by the way, Anna Paulina Luna is 100% right that they should get rid of their ability to trade stocks.
Absolutely,
It is
agree.
absolutely that and the Virginia one-term ban on governorship.
I agree.
Are my two hobby horses.
right next to each other.
When I run for president, that's how I'm going to do it.
I'm here. I'm consulting. I like that.
I appreciate it. By the way, speaking of money, are we about to see the first ever trillionaire? What's trending is next. All right, if you're just getting home, trying to catch up on today's top stories, here's some of what's trending right now over at thehill.com. Tesla shareholders voting in favor of Musk's $1 trillion pay package. The shareholders voting on his compensation as CEO. Musk was pushing for this. The value of his shares could make him the world's first ever trillionaire. How about that? Also trending tonight, Marjorie Taylor Greene labels Ocasio-Cortez jealous after revenge tour claim. If you were watching us last night, the Georgia Congresswoman making headlines for her appearance on this show in response to AOC's suggestion that her recent defiance of the Republican Party, or at least, sort of opposition on some sort of issues, is because President Trump didn't support a run for Senate. The rep from Georgia claimed that AOC is simply just jealous of her recently being embraced in New York City on The View. And finally, how about this? The D.C. sandwich guy, remember him? Found not guilty of misdemeanor assault. The prosecution's case must not have cut the mustard. Sean Dunn was acquitted. The case stems from this viral video that shows Dunn slinging a Subway sandwich at a federal agent this past summer. No matter the verdict, don't do that. Obviously not a good look. To check out these stories and more, all you have to do is head on over to thehill.com. All right, as we told you at the top of the show, just hours away from what could become a travel nightmare scenario all across the country. Already hundreds of flights scheduled for Friday have been cut at some of the 40 busiest airports, and the number of cancellations continues to climb. All this as a result of the longest government shutdown in history. I thank you for watching us here on The Hill. Stay with us. We'll be back tomorrow. I hand it over now to Elizabeth Vargas. Take it away.